So the other day I was on IG and I was looking at this particular post. One of the posts on IG was a group of, I'm going to assume it was black Christians, and they were sitting around having a conversation and they were talking about relationships, what a man looks like, a godly man, how a man should treat his wife. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I've been hearing this conversation since 1991. I've been listening to these type of conversations ever since I was a kid. And I don't recall, you know, these conversations being as prevalent. I don't call them being as common. And then every day I go on social media, it's the same conversation that we're having. If it's not about love and relationship, it's about sex. If it's not about sex, it's about who's the hottest hip hop artist, or how one artist brought a whole bunch of rappers in the West Coast on stage. And that's fine and dandy, but that's not impressive. Or, we're talking about, governmental issues that we still haven't figured out, or how to decodify and get the results that we want. And I just kind of made my own comment, like, how long are we going to continue to have these conversations? And the rest of the world has moved on to bigger and better things, and conversations that actually mean something, and conversations that actually matter. Then I went to another post because we just came out of the graduation season. And I see the typical post of a bunch of black graduates, young men and women, and congratulations to them. But they go into this whole dance routine, this whole rant, this whole celebration. And I'm like, for what? My daughter recently had the end of the year program to where they acknowledge the kids. And the most they're going to get is participation, along with a few other scholastically accolades that they've earned. The lady who was in charge of the program clearly said, please hold your applause till after all the kids have been announced. And it wasn't a lot of kids, mind you, ladies and gentlemen. It was not a large group of kids. The minute the ceremony began, I believe like the second or third student was a black student. It had been quiet up until that point. But when the young lady crossed the stage, what happened? Hooping and hollering, cheering, that's my baby. And it was just a very embarrassing moment. And I just don't get it. And so in the comment section, and both of them, the one I was relating to with the black graduates, the ones the comments that I've gotten, the feedback I've gotten for the ones who were talking about marriage, it was the same old thing. And as far as the graduates, people actually referring to me as being an enemy. You're the reason why we are our own worst enemy. And, you sound like you 400 years ago. And why did you act the way that I do? I act the way that I do because I'm a codified mind and I always want to get a constructive result. Black people accomplish one thing, maybe 3 baby steps, and will celebrate 50 years for one accomplishment. While in the meanwhile, we haven't made no real progress. We haven't made no real movement. And I think a lot of times people are disillusioned by the social equality of things, relationships between people that appear to be getting along. But if you take away sports, music, and entertainment, you'll discover that we have not made no real advancements in the society and in this system as people who are victims in the system of white supremacy. And the reason why I never let up from this conversation is because each and every day, while we begin to have the most minute conversations, the most unrealistic conversations about nothing, it's going to always come back to race. People criticize me all the time. And, there's no way that you can come for a person that's simply not going to argue with you or ask you questions. This is not the platform where you can come. You can troll me all you want to, but the troll, it would be met with it won't be any power because I'm not going to acknowledge it. And you can simply go to another platform and get whatever that you want or whatever that you need as far as the content that you want to hear. And I'm like, all these young men and women are celebrating and graduating. And the celebration is for what? What are they going to actually do when they obtain all this information with continued education? Most of the time, they don't use it to benefit or help their own community. And people will tell me that anytime that you get your continued education, you get a doctor's degree or you get your master's, dealing with our people is some of the hardest people to deal with. But in every other aspect of society, there's other people and other ethnic stocks of people that are also hard to deal with just as well. People just don't want to accept that. And the one thing that I would celebrate is not so much as a person graduating, because people say, and this has been the common line, oh, the things they had to go through and the challenges, and it was a struggle. And I'm here to tell you that if a child had to struggle and go through challenges, it's okay. But most of the time, these children who are graduating from colleges and high schools, the only reason why they're in challenging environments is because the adults have not made it a better environment for them to thrive in. It's just as simple. And when the kids graduate, all the screaming, yelling, hooping, and hollering is for who? Is it for really your child, or is it really about you? And I ain't gonna even lie. When my son was playing football, my daughter was playing ball, I was one of those. That's my daughter father. That's my son father. It wasn't really about them achieving anything. I was just proud to have a child that came from my loins that was out there performing and doing the things that made me proud as a man. But I don't really think that my children really cared to have that kind of praise, or even needed that type of recognition. They just wanted to go out there and perform and do the best they wanted to do. So I'm talking about baby food. We're still doing the same things from years ago that produce no results. We're still doing things that Black people have always wanted to separate themselves to be a face that society could materialize, a people that could be identified. That's why whenever you're around Black people, we're the loudest, we talk the loudest, we laugh the loudest, and it don't be about nothing. We dress the loudest, we drive the loudest, we do everything very loud. We have to do everything pronounced. We have to do everything with attention. We have to do everything with acknowledgement. And I'm always say this: powerless people will always be the loudest ones in the room. I don't mean to be negative, and I don't have a problem with people celebrating an accomplishment. But the way that I look at it, when my daughter does graduate high school, the young baby girl, because I've never been the screaming, yelling type, it's an accomplishment that I expect her to do and not to be looked upon as a challenge. It's an accomplishment that I expect her to do, to be happy about it, but let's move on to the next level. Let's get the results that we're looking for out of life and better yourself as an individual. Because at the end of the day, what are we really celebrating? Being white man educated, learning their rules, learning their regulations, going to benefit and solve problems for their society? Is that something to really celebrate? The first doctor of this, the first CEO of that, the first GM of this, the first elected judge of this, the first elected Black official of that. And we think that's history, and we think that's something to celebrate. The last brilliancy of Black America was the Negro Leagues and how they organized in the middle of Jim Crow, in the middle of a time where racism was so strong, so prevalent, burning crosses in front yards, kids walking to school looking at low-hanging fruit, lynch men and Black women. And they found a way to thrive as a community. They didn't waste a lot of time celebrating. Now, the way that they did it, when they rejoiced, they released some of the stress and some of the anguish of racism and Jim Crow when they got together at the juke joints. It was just simply to release. But the reason how I know they wasn't a celebratory people, because they got results. They created their own societies, and they wanted to own their own towns, their own banks, their own schools. And this was once us as a people. But now look at us today. We celebrate going to be employees. We celebrate never ever trying to be anything or any ownership of anything real besides maybe a shirt, a clothing company, a chicken shack, a record label. This is all baby food. What are we doing in the real scheme of things in the global world scheme? Just like I tell you all the time, even though I talk about racism and white supremacy, I'm not here to talk about white people. This Caitlin Clark situation, let me use that as an example. Black people are mad at white people for valuing whiteness. Caitlin Clark is a great athlete, but there's nothing that spectacular about that young lady to where she should get the level of attention that she has. But she's been promoted as the face of the league. She's been promoted as one to uplift the league, but they leave out Angel Reese, who, by the way, had a good game today. Shout out to Angel Reese. But they know how to put the value upon themselves. If they want to give her, if Nike wants to give her a shoe deal, I ain't got a problem with that. If ESPN wants to put on the cover of the magazine, I ain't got a problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is how Black people always cry and beg and want to sit at the white man's table when we can create our own platforms. So we can blow up and make the narrative our own athletes. Come up with shoe companies and blow up and give them a shoe deal for our own athletes. But we steady crying and screaming for others to accept us, and they do, and they need not to accept us as the people that we are. They don't have to. The problem that I have with us is that we still have not figured this out in 2024, excuse me. Why? Because we're still eating baby food. We're still doing things and processes that have not been proven to work. But we think because this is something of Blackness, we think this is something of greatness, and we want the world to pay attention to us, and we want the world to know that Black lives matter. But we don't even have a codification to stop killing one another. It is a big issue when others don't acknowledge it. All we have to do is acknowledge ourselves. I think what Ice Cube is doing is a very genuine thing with the Big Three. That's something that I highly value. That's something that Ice Cube has put the high value on past players of the generations of time from professional basketball. That's something that I highly look upon, is that's a high form of codification. But at the end of the day, when I talk about these certain things, when we had the Negro Leagues, we had something to be proud of. We were playing baseball at an unprecedented level that Major League Baseball had never seen. And just like with the ABA, we brought a new, different brand of style of play with trickery, behind the back tosses to second base to turn a double play, the way we bat, the way we ran around the bases and tried it, the way we would do the most radical things and challenge each other that made it very entertaining. But then eventually they accepted us into the Major League, which ironically, we lost the Negro Leagues as time moved on, and we lost the greatness of ourselves. But that was a time to celebrate. That was a time to be proud of an accomplishment because we had our own platforms. I believe it was the Chicago. I can't think of it. The Chicago Tribune. The Chicago something was like the #1 black publication in America. That was our own publication. That's something to be proud of. But it's not necessarily something to celebrate. The celebration has got to end. The dancing has got to end. Every day I go on social media, I see dancing, and that's all I see. But I don't see self-improvement. And even with the algorithm of social media, I don't follow models. I've unfollowed like all the World Star pages. I don't follow all the ghetto hood pages, hood fights. I don't follow none of that bullshit. But yet and still the algorithm still pops up on my social media pages. I'm looking for us to move into a level of where we're eating a healthy diet of real conversations, a healthy diet of real ways and patterns of thinking to improve ourselves, to improve as a people, to become as more codified as ever. And the day we begin to figure this out and we begin to unblack a lot of things that we've adapted as black culture will be the day that the world take note. We don't have to be loud to get attention because they'll be paying attention to us because they see us moving in a different manner in all of our thought, speech, and actions, as Neely Fuller Jr. has always wrote about in the code. And I'm looking for that day to come about. But egotistical, arrogant black people are the corniest people I ever see walking around every single day with their chest stuck out. And I'm here to tell you that as long as the system of white supremacy exists and we ain't figured out how to solve this problem, there shouldn't be not one black person, one black man, one black woman in the concept called America walking around with their chest stuck out, all arrogant and bold. That is the most silliest, corniest thing that you could do to yourself. And I'm not telling you to be weak and feeble, not at all. But I'm asking us to stop eating the baby food. And I just inboxed the partner of mine trying to find out what was the big deal about this thing that took place the other day with a well-known rap artist. Well, everybody came on stage and this and the third. And I'm like, they did that years ago with the Stop the Self-Destruction song. They did that years together when they Crips and the Bloods came together and had peace treaties and were making songs, and they did an album, Stand in Unity. And then years later, they turned around and started back killing one another again. So help me to help understand how to make sense to this, because all of that to me is baby food. Every day we eat baby food. Every day we watch baby food, and we're grown ass men and women by physical standards in our 50s, in our 60s, in our 70s, and it's nothing but baby food on the brain, baby food in your thoughts. You're not eating no real diet of any real change to be expected. And I'm not impressed with more than half of everything that I see. When I come amongst black men, I want the conversation to be high level. Teach me something that I don't know. And I ain't necessarily talking about credit. I'm not talking about finances. I'm not talking about real estate. Because you know why? When black people try to teach each other these things, they're getting information that is 50 years old to white folks, and they're on to the next thing that we have no idea and no clue about. I'm not passionate about a lot of things that people are anymore. What I'm looking for is a healthy diet of a real conversation to move our people forward. It's okay to accomplish something and be happy in the moment, but the over celebrating, women getting in the aisles, twerking, acting all foolish and stupid, that makes us, that nobody else does that. And then we get mad when people who don't look like us tell us like, yo, we don't do that here in these institutions. Listen, has anybody ever went to an Ivy League college graduation or any upscale school graduation? They wait till the end of the ceremony to let it loose, but they don't do it per student. And these were some of the greatest minds are crossing stages that are going to impact life. And we're celebrating. Why? Because we thought we wasn't good enough, smart enough, or had the tenacity to graduate from college, to graduate from high school. They're the first male to graduate from high school. They're the first woman to graduate from high school. That's not impressive. You're supposed to do that. That's not even a feat anymore. Just like when people be like, you're a great father. Hey, I thank you, but I don't need no credit for what I'm supposed to do. So what I'm trying to get us to understand as a people is start eating the healthy diet and stop eating baby food of culture. Stop eating the baby food of thought. Stop eating the baby food of all your speech and your actions. and develop mentally and move on to the most codified people that we could ever be. Not the most educated, the most codified people that we could ever be. And I said in that post, what are they going to exactly do that they became doctors, except look for a job and work for a white institution? But I do understand and know that there is a black woman that has come up with a cure for cancer. Now that is something to celebrate. But even I don't see that young lady out on social media popping bottles, all on yachts, taking trips. Oh, I discovered the cure for cancer, so let's party. No. Now let me continue on my research to figure out what else I can learn from what I've learned how to cure this disease and this sickness that has taken millions from us, all of our loved ones. Back in the lab again, burning midnight oil, and to figure out other ways of healing people. We must understand that a lot of things that we want to hold to, that we adapt to, that we think is black culture is really bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. And now we must get on the level of understanding of self-value, self-worth, and learn how to move quiet with no rant. And that's simply all I'm saying. Each and every day, I think that you should self-improve. Each and every day, you should spend 5 to 10 minutes reading a book. Each and every single day, you should spend 5 or 10 minutes exercising. And each and every single day, you should do some meditating and think about ways of improving and changing your life. This is my baby calling me over and over again. Autumn, daddy's recording. So listen, this is my daughter, and I'm gonna wrap up this recording. But I want to say this, and I want to be firm about it. First of all, I want to dedicate this episode to my good friend Bryson Clark, who lost his father and made his transition early this week. I also want to give a shout out to my good brother Ronnie Harrison, who's also lost his brother this week. And also I want to acknowledge the greatness and the return to the essence of the legend, the legendary Willie Mays. So as I tell you all the time, the biggest mistake that you can make in life is to think that you have time. But we have time to self-improve. This is the place where we bring it sexy back to the everyday hardworking men and women who impact our life within close proximity. We want to rise above this culture we want to rise above this madness, which is called black culture, aka eating baby food. Until next time, and I think I'm gonna have Melanin Coasters on next as a guest. We're gonna talk about, he's a brother that I've known, and what he does is do reviews and travel the country and ride roller coasters. He's another brother, young constructive black man that has found his lane, found his passion, and we're gonna be having him on as well. And also, I'm gonna be doing a new installment on this program. Is going to be Daddy Daughter Talks, and it's going to be daddy conversations with my daughter Peaches. We're going to be having candid conversations. It will not be scripted. It'll be right off the head. And this is something that I really just champion people to tune in, watch. Maybe you could learn something on how we conversate, how I talk to my daughter. Of course, I'm not the end all be all of parenthood, but what I've learned in my time of parenting and everything that I've learned has worked out for me. And it's made my, nobody's the perfect parent, but all my children are doing good. And so this is something that I want you all to start tapping in real soon. Other than that, I promise to never compromise the content. I appreciate everybody that follows the show. Like, share, subscribe, tell a problem solver to come on in. And as always, man, I value and I love you. I will see you next time. Peace.